Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're talking about Spine 538, Paths of Glory, directed by Stanley Kubrick, 1957. This must be my birthday today. Off the heels of one war film, I talk about another. And off the heels of one director I really admire into another director I really admire. As I've said before, certainly when talking about Spartacus, and maybe peppered in a few other occasions, I consider Stanley Kubrick to be my cinematic father figure. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I look at his work, his career, and his approach to filmmaking, and I see that as a template worth emulating. No, this does not mean I'm going to take multiple takes. No, this does not mean that I'm going to come off as an eccentric perfectionist, although probably I won't have to do a whole lot of work for that. But basically, what I learned from Kubrick, first and foremost, is that if you want to make something good, you have to commit 100% to it. It has to be a total, almost immersive effort. And you can't half-ass it. You can't do anything less. You really need to be as firm and committed and thorough as you possibly can. And you should be in the end proud of your work. You shouldn't feel like there's any regrets. You shouldn't feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and you really have to stick by it, and that I think is a worthy thing to emulate. Having standards and wanting to push yourself and to make the best possible work you can. Now, so where to start with this one? Naturally, when this and The Killing would come out, I was very happy that Kubrick would there would be more Kubrick in the collection besides just Spartacus. I'm not expecting at all to see the later films of Kubrick. Although if Criterion is able to release Badlands, speaking of Malick. I wouldn't be surprised if I guess I wouldn't be totally surprised if Criterion went ahead and did something with Barry Lyndon, which is probably the only other title that isn't given so much the star treatment as some of his other films were. So Criterion gets early Kubrick. The first several films that really made that helped establish his reputation and would point in some way to bigger and better things that he would do later on. And Paths of Glory is no exception. This is the film that really put Kubrick on the map, internationally. That was. This is a film that really kind of turned him from someone who was working very independently and is slowly gaining his reputation as a film director into a film director of worthy note. Where to continue with this? I mean, there's a lot that I could talk about with this. Now, in some respects, I mean, early Kubrick. I mean, I think you get a lot out of Kubrick no matter what period it is. But I mean, there are differences. I mean, for starters, this is not this is not the Kubrick of. On the one hand, this is not the Kubrick who would later make 2001 and A Clockwork Orange and The Shining and Full Metal Jacket. And there are some things that you see in this film that you don't see as much in the later films, particularly in the way that things are presented in a fairly unambiguous, clear way. I mean, it's very clear about who these characters of who these characters are and what is going on. There's no ambiguity in that respect, but at the same time, there is a richness of detail there, and you really get the sense that there was some thought and care put into it to make it not just an ordinary scene, but to really make it feel like something else. And the fact that he was able to do that very early on, and that he just continued to build on that. It's a very, very impressive start, and considering that he was almost. He had just reached 30 at this point, and this would be his fourth feature film that he made. So I mean, already, it's quite impressive considering where he started and where he's gone to that point. And now seeing this film again, it's also very easy to see the kernels of other things that go on. In fact, there's the story of Paths of Glory is my apologies for not getting this all set up. I just want to make sure I got the characters all right and everything. But anyways, the whole plot of it. This is set in World War One. 1916 specifically, and General Miru, played by George McCready, is told by his superior, General Brulard, played by Adolphe Menjou, to take an anthill, and it's referred to as the anthill. Now, the other thing is that you don't really see what this anthill is. So you're not really sure of whether this was a crucial move or not, and this plays out later in the film. He is ordered to amass whatever troops he has, or to send whatever regiment he feels is best to take this anthill, and the regiment he uses is the 701st, and it's led by Colonel Dax, played by Kirk Douglas. And he's initially very skeptical of this, but he understands that orders are orders, and he's going to try to make the most of it. And so then comes the next day with this preparation of the anthill, and they're all in the trenches. And one of the iconic shots in Paths of Glory is the tracking camera through the trenches as you're seeing the soldiers look at, and this is all from Dax's point of view. So all the soldiers are presumably looking at Dax, and you get this, and all this chaos is going around. This is what he's learned from Max Ophuls. It's not just I want the camera to move, but I want the camera to move for a reason. It's both being in Colonel Dax's shoes and also being more objective and saying that this is a shit situation. This is not going to go very well, and it turns out it doesn't go very well. They try to charge, but then they're pulled back, and General Miru is quite outraged by all of this. It's like, why aren't they moving their positions? They need to take the anthill. And a large part of his motivation is that if he is successful in taking this anthill, then he will be up for promotion. So his career is on the line, and a lot is certainly at stake for him. He doesn't care if it really is if it is unfeasible to do this, and casualties be damned. Or I don't care if it's impossible. Take that damn anthill. It's all very futile, and of course he's upset by all this, and in his rage, he orders that Dax takes a few of his men and have them tried for cowardice in the face of the enemy. And so then there's this trial about cowardice in the face of the enemy, and it reeks of sham. I mean, this film is hailed as an anti-war film, and I could see why, but in the end, it's not really an anti-war because soldiers do their duties. It's less anti-war and more about anti-hypocrisy. It's looking at it's basically looking at who's in charge and what is important to them versus what's important to the local. Because there is there's a noticeable contrast in rationale. The higher you are, the more ambitious you are, and the more you're willing to bend and compromise your own principles in order to secure your own position. It's very Machiavellian. It's really using whatever means are necessary to achieve your own ends. That's on the higher up. But then as you get lower, you have really no ambitions of your own other than to live to see the next day, and also not to get into more trouble or anything. You fulfill your duty as a soldier, and you do your duty, and hopefully you'll survive to live to see another day. And hopefully there will be a time when the war will be over and that you can come home to your family and then resume your life as usual. And so they take the orders very seriously, and they have certain values that they take very seriously and that they hold on to. And also, it's not as simple as that. I think that's the other great thing about Kubrick is that it's there to make a point, but it's not. You don't feel like they're caricatures in this. I mean, you feel like they're real people, and the reason why you feel like they're real people is because you know that they have flaws. That is the big takeaway from pretty much all of Kubrick's films is that he was interested in the follies of human action, the mistakes we make, and how we seem to justify those mistakes, and how we perpetuate those mistakes without even really thinking. So it's something you definitely see this in Paths of Glory. It's easy to see little seeds of this in subsequent films. In fact, there was a moment where like during the attack where General Moreau was upset that why aren't they taking the anthill? Why are they advancing? And then he orders his artillery to fire on their positions to try to motivate them to get out of the trenches and to go out. But the telephone clerk and the commanding officer at the battery, the battery commander, they kept insisting on following procedures and written orders. And it's a scene that pretty much fits very well with Dr. Strangelove. Just the routine and commenting on some of the absurdity, because not that the routine itself. In fact, if anything, the routine was almost a safeguard, and also proved to be very advantageous for Colonel Dax later on. Even though he lost in other respects, but it was the small little victory that he was able to get out of this whole mess. But it was, again, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier about what is valuable and what is important. For Moreau, what's important was to take that anthill and hopefully get a promotion. He doesn't care how it's going to be. If he's going to fire on his own men, then he's going to do that, and without giving a written order, without following protocol. And it's protocol that wins out. And Kubrick was always fascinated with routine, and this is what makes Dr. Strangelove a very interesting watch. Is you see all this procedure played out. You think like, oh, this is kind of boring, but at the same time, it's good to know how you're going to die. whether it's pointing some artillery at your own men, or dropping a bomb at a Russian base. It's really good to know what goes into that whole process. Like, this is how it works. So, Kubrick famously said that if it can be thought of, it can be filmed, and this includes military protocol. But so yeah, who knew that you can find this just as amusing, Paths of Glory just as amusing as in Doctor Strangelove. Another moment was very early on when General Moreau walks through some of the trenches the day before the attack, and he's looking at the troops, and he says like, "Oh, this is a great day to fight and everything," and he encounters this one soldier that is. It's clear that he's shell shocked, and Moreau has no business with it. Like, I don't believe in shell shock. That's outrageous. And I almost wanted him to say, now if you whimper and cry for me one more time, I'm going to gouge out your eyes and skull fuck you. So, and then at a certain point, I even said 7.62 millimeter full metal jacket. So. So yeah, so that I'm being such a fanboy right now, but I don't care. So yeah, it's again what I like about Paths of Glory, and particularly in relation to Kubrick's filmography, his oeuvre, is that you see all the traits that make a Kubrick film, particularly when it comes to cinematography. I know there's a I don't want to start all wars because I think it's pretty much resolved itself. But there was a big ongoing debate about how do you present Kubrick's films, and this is where you get into aspect ratios. Do you present it full frame or do you present it as matted for theatrical projection? The reasoning being that Kubrick shot it open matte. He tends to prefer open matte in his lifetime, and I think he was also interested in the highest resolution possible. But so this is a case where for a while, Paths of Glory was shown on home video as at full frame, 1:3:3:1. But Criterion, both on DVD and Blu-ray, showed it at 1:6:6:1, which is one of the soft widescreen ratios, and I can see that it looks much better. I could tell that was composed with that ratio in mind. Just the way that people were placed and the way everything is framed. It's like, yeah, that looks great. So. So yeah, it's so yeah, back to Kubrick. But yeah, the cinematography, particularly the way that the camera moves, the way that everything is shot, and the way that scenes play out. Sometimes there are scenes that feel a little bit more forced. I mean, in later Kubrick films, it's known for more of its. If not its subtlety, it's less overtness. It doesn't make its points all too obvious. But there's a little bit of that. But at the same time, it's not bad at all. I mean, I think the strengths outweigh any of the weaknesses. Another weakness that comes to mind is one of the soldiers who was chosen to represent the regiment that didn't dare take the anthill was played by Timothy Carey, who had worked with Kubrick before in The Killing, and he has a very electric presence, but he also tends to steal scenes, and he tends to go more over the top than I think is really necessary. And I think there's some parts where he really overdoes it. Particularly, I'm thinking of the execution. Like he gets to a point where he is in this perpetual breakdown where he's just constantly crying and he's just constantly worried. Oh, I want to die. And it's like, How many times do you want to do? And all this time, a priest is accompanying him on this little journey, and I could kind of see it in his eye. He says, have courage, my son, have faith, and he's trying to be really nice, but I'm almost thinking that if he weren't a priest, he would just say, please, just shut the fuck up already, all right? Just take it like a man, damn it! And just tear loose on it. Like, you almost want it. So I guess maybe that's kind of the point, is you have the whimpering soldier, you have the steadfast priest kind of speaking for the rest of it, so that the rest of us can go, shut the fuck up. So maybe that does work. So maybe that's more of a feature rather than a bug. So, but again, I think any of the flaws are, part of the, one, it's part of the charm, and two, I don't believe that you can ever make a perfect film. I don't even think even Stanley wanted to make a perfect film. He just wanted to make a film that he felt proud of. With no regrets. So in that sense, it's a great watch. So of course I'm going to recommend this on the basis that I really like Kubrick. And if you really like Kubrick, and especially if you've only known Kubrick more with his later films like 2001 or A Clockwork Orange or Dr. Strangelove, this is an earlier film, and you get to see the things that Stanley would later do in other films, that would continue to do in other films, and even some things that were unique to that time period and that he would probably give up for all kinds of reasons. So yeah. Paths of Glory. And until next time, take care.